Do you want to win a VIP trip for two to Ballard's Resort? Well, you can head over to the contest page right now. Enter to win a VIP package that includes 2 nights lodging for two and 2 days of guided walleye fishing. KFAN.com keyword contest to enter.
10:04 in the neighborhood, and the neighborhood is FM 100.3, KFAN. The destination for the Love Covenant, 9 to noon radio, is Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center in Eagan, Minnesota, home to your Minnesota Vikings. Nordo produces, and I'm Paul Allen. The guest for now is Alec Lewis with The Athletic and theathletic.com. He covers the Minnesota Vikings, and follow him, please, via Twitter at Alec_Lewis. Did you really spend, well, of course you did, you wouldn't lie. You spent 2 months crafting a story on just how random the NFL draft can be, leading you to Nobel Prize-winning professors and Johnny Manziel and the messy concoction that makes the event so fascinating. Please take us through it.
Where'd you get that snippet?
Twitter?
Yeah, I did. I spent 2 months, really. I promise you, the last 2 months, I've done a lot of mock drafts, done a lot of big boards, kind of a little bit tired of all of it. And I'm like, you know what? How many people actually know? Like, do the teams know when they pick these players that the player's going to be good or not? And how do you know? And after the fact, how do you figure out why it went right or wrong? And those questions fascinate me because I'm a nerd. And so I was like, well, I'm not that smart and I'm a nerd. So I'm going to go talk to people who have been in the industry and ask them, how random is this? And is there a better way to do it? And there's research that's been done, by behavioral economics, essentially on this is why you should trade down more often, because everyone thinks they're right. Everyone thinks they know how to evaluate the player, because if they don't know, then why do they have the job in the first place?
Yep.
So everyone thinks they're right, and so they always stick and pick rather than giving themselves more darts to throw. So I learned a lot about the industry. I learned a lot about the dynamics of these buildings and leadership and how differing opinions often create conflict within these rooms. It was a really, really fun story. Got to talk to a lot of really successful people who have been in the industry. So I loved it. I love doing that stuff.
Well, I'm trying to get to the bottom of you said 2 months crafting a story on just how random the NFL draft can be. Absolutely love that. But how in any way can Sinclair Lewis, Eugene O'Neill, or William Faulkner, former Nobel Peace Award winners, how can they possibly help?
Yeah.
Well, that's what the tweet said. It said Nobel Prize winning professors.
Yeah. So Richard Thaler is this Nobel Prize winning behavioral economics who is a professor at the University of Chicago. And how can he help? Well, he thinks a lot about decision making and markets in general. The draft is essentially like a trade. It's why Kwesi Adofo-Mensah makes sense for the job. It's essentially a trader's market. You have 32 actors all vying for different slots and have different values. And so it's a dynamically changing market.
What's the guy's name?
Richard Thaler. And studying that.
Thaler?
Thaler.
Okay. Yeah, I can't find him on this list of Nobel laureates by university. I think you fell into a flim-flam.
No, yeah, I definitely fell into a flim-flam. I probably shouldn't repeat that because I don't know what that even means, but I did. But yeah, so behavioral economics economists found the draft an interesting petri dish for them to study. And they first did it in 2005. They replicated their study in 2011. And really, the idea is their advice is pretty simple. If you trade down more often because you are willing to admit that you're not 1,000% sure which player is going to work out, then you're going to have more targets. Now, Vikings fans listen to this, I know, are like, this guy is an idiot. Rick Spielman traded down 1 billion times, and it was a disaster. And I called Rick for this story because I wanted to ask him, you traded down a lot. Why? So I called Rick, and he said at some point in his tenure, some analytics people came to him. I think with a lot of this research, they told him the more darts you have, the more likely it is that you hit. Doesn't mean you're going to hit, but it means the odds are in your favor. It's like playing blackjack. Someone told me for the story, it's like, do you ever hit on 17? No. then like, why would you continuously hit on 17? That's what these teams are doing constantly by operating the way they do. So the problem is when you trade back and it doesn't work the way Kwesi Adofo-Mensah did, you get crushed. And that's part of the reason why teams don't do it very often. So very fascinating, at least to me, because I'm a nerd.
Well, also another piece. Why from The Athletic, theathletic.com, yours truly, not compensated to say this, been a subscriber since day one. Highly recommend you to pay the nominal charge monthly for the journalistic excellence that you will find at The Athletic. And I'm on that site multiple times every day. Another story was, why might Sam Darnold ultimately be a critical aspect of the development of a potential Vikings young quarterback?
So, from what I know, the people inside this building want to take it very methodically with developing the potentially drafted young quarterback. If he's ready week one, then maybe they won't take it methodically. But you always want to have that the willingness to say, if this guy's not ready, we're not going to throw him in the fire. And that's a great. I think that's how they think. That's probably how they're going to operate, depending on who they draft. But it's easy to operate that way if the current guy is performing. So that's why, to me, Sam Darnold is a fascinating layer to all of this. Their situation is great. You have a ton of skill players. You've got a great coaching staff with a lot of quarterback minds who are pretty sharp. But if Sam Darnold does not succeed and he's throwing 4 picks a game to start the season, the noise is going to get really loud to play the young quarterback. And if you throw the young quarterback into the fire, then is that developing him optimally? So Sam Darnold's performance, to me, that's why it matters, and that's why you pay a guy $10 million who you think could maybe be pretty good, because then it gives you the potential runway to develop the guy the right way. Not everyone's going to be C.J. Stroud and just come in and set the world on fire.
In closing, with the odds for players to be drafted and where they will be drafted, I've said this is age old for me, and it is true, but not everybody understands the pluses and the minuses with like minus 275, or B, they don't know where to find it. But the betting markets for the top 10 to top 20, well, that will unveil and reveal markedly more than any mock you're going to see. 1 to like 20. Okay, so everybody can go Caleb, then boom, 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 and so you know how it works. Mm-hmm. So there was a major move yesterday with Jaden Daniels, who Daniels went to what's known as minus 275 to become the second pick in the draft. May went up to plus 215. So if you think Drake May is going to be the second pick in the draft, you put up $10. If you win, you scoop $31.50. Conversely, if you believe Daniels will be second, which I do, you need to put up your $27.50 to win to win the books 10 for a scoop of nearly 38. What do you think of that move?
Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense. There was, I believe, at Jaden Daniels' pro day at LSU, Brian Kelly made some comment of like, Jaden Daniels will look good in Washington. You wonder how much that plays a role in it. But I mean, yeah, it seems like the industry kind of consensus / wisdom right now is Caleb Williams 1, Jaden Daniels 2. I mean, it feels that way. Mm-hmm. And to me, that would make sense. And this is when the question for the Vikings ultimately becomes Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, Michael, like how much difference between all these guys do you have in your evaluation? And if there's a massive difference, I think that's where, as Kwesi Adofo-Mensah said, you're willing to take on more risk. Again, as I said earlier in the show, I think they want to do it. I think that'd be their preferred situation.
Right.
But I also think they're going to be disciplined and rational in what they're willing to give up, whereas teams like the Giants, the Broncos, and the Raiders might not be, which may speak to the desperation.
Well, they're picking from 11. Now, the over-under on season wins before the draft, that's laid out. DraftKings and FanDuel have gone over this with Nordo and others over the course of the last week. It's the Packers and Lions are 10.5. The Bears are 8.5, and it wasn't 8. It went to 8.5, so they're betting it, supposedly the Sharps are betting it up, and Minnesota 6.5.
It's tough.
So, I mean, if the over-under is 6.5 on season wins, all right, they don't, I believe they'll be wrong, but they don't put out numbers that are going to be markedly off to suck you in to bet, to bet nothing. They would put it at 7 if they felt this was dicey. So therefore, okay, well, a lot of ties, a lot of pushes. But I mean, if it's 6.5, that means 6 or 5 is probable with those who, or more probable than some think, with those who establish those lines. So now put that in the mix. In New England, Arizona, whomever, considering 11-23, and oh, by the way, even with this guy, and you're going to start Darnold, and everybody knows it, and you're going to play him half the season, and everybody knows it, you're going to hit a 5 or a 6, and that means we're going to get the 9th pick next year. That is, I mean, if somebody believes that, well, that's a major factor in this equation if you have to give up 3, right?
No question. And, I mean, this is going to sound really maybe negative, I don't know, but I told Nordo this on Saturday off air. We haven't talked much about the offensive line at all. We really haven't.
Right. He brought up guard yesterday. It was a good take.
It's not the sexiest talker in the world, but it's just where there are just a lot of ifs with where this roster is. There just are. I mean, you have the offensive line, like I mentioned. You have just the overall health of all the skill players. That's an if. Potentially Sam Darnold. That's an if. Defensively, the cornerbacks, in my opinion, that's an if. The interior defensive line, still an if. And then can the coaching staff maximize the entire roster? It's an if too. So there is a lot
that
there
matters.
that gets you to the 6.5 number, and definitely probably has to factor into to these trade offers. I mean, look what the Carolina Panthers gave up to get Bryce Young, and then the Bears have the number 1 pick. I mean, it definitely will factor into other teams' calculus, no question.
Have a wonderful day, and thank you very much for helping. We'd love to have you next week as we get closer to the big day. Okay?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Alec Lewis, The Athletic, and TheAthletic.com. The talkbacks for the draft party tickets are around the corner, and Brett Blakemore has been listening to those and filing them away to play them back for 9 to noon. Speaking of Double B, he has that cash thing.
That cash thing, the fan and BigTech.com want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand at the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com, enter the keyword grand for this hour. The keyword is grand, KFAN.com, keyword grand, your talkbacks now. If you want to chime in on what's happening with your favorite KFAN shows, you can make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Just let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard text message and data rates apply. So what's coming? It would be talkbacks from members of Rube Nation to the free iHeartRadio app, the location of the baby microphone, and 30 seconds of your very best, because 9 to noon is at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center, home to your Minnesota Vikings. And as you may or may not hear Kevin O'Connell, the head coach, say in 40 minutes when he joins us here in studio, you're being your best when your best is required. And when you hit that baby microphone for, as Common would say, hundreds of tens of well, a couple of 13, 14 football-loving rubes listening to it, copyright Dan Cole, the Common Man, you want to be at your best when your best is required. You don't want to roll into the cubicle and have Frank from Fridley right next to you say, nice effort on the 9 to noon, but holy cow, was that was terrible. I mean, where'd you come up with that opinion? And your syntax was awful, and, I mean, grammar. No, you don't want to do that. You want to hit the baby microphone and provide your best when your best is required. Why? Because it's there for you to be heard. The fan opinion to be heard.
but also to win tickets to the Miller Lite draft party a week from Thursday, the Nords.
Yeah, so let's jump back to the studios. I know Brett at some point will let us know who the winner is, and they'll get a pair of tickets to next Thursday's draft party. Miller Lite, thank you for that. Also, thank you to Pep's Draft House for sponsoring all KFAN coverage. Pep's Draft House Pizza.
Yeah.
But Brett, hit us off the cuff with a Vikings related talkback, please.
Yeah, and we'll have a lot of X's and O's draft talks, but I wanted to start here.
Hi, this is Cole from South Amanda, North Dakota. I have a draft day slogan for you guys. Trading the farm for Drake May's arm.
Ooh, your thoughts?
Trading the farm for Drake May's arm. Well, I liked the city.
Mandan?
I thought it was South Amanda because I'm like,
That's
wow, I'm from North Audrey. Holy cow! That's what a yeah. I grew up in North Ashland, man. That's got to be pretty close to you. I like it. I like the way he laid it out, and I also like how he went to the deep voice card. So that if only because it was first, there is your leader.
What's next?
Do we think that possibly J.J. McCarthy is a little bit more game ready or NFL ready just because he's got the national championship underneath his belt? And I've seen pictures of him meditating at the goalpost. Do you think that's a quirk thing, or do you think that actually helps him? Do you think that will carry over into the NFL when he's really playing with the big boys? Let me know what you guys think about that.
Well, most pro ready right now. Well, that's Caleb Williams. That's the one who's been crafted in a lab, like some basketball players, where they go through the AAU programs, and they're just crafted. They more so have a crafting upbringing than they do like a childhood. Caleb Williams has been crafted for many years for this moment, and he's earned the right to be the first overall pick in the draft. And either for me, just gut feeling off what I know, which is not as much about this than certainly those who follow it more closely. I would think Williams would be first with a bullet to jump in and help. And after that, I think Michael Penix Jr. probably would be my next choice, simply because of his age, his maturity, the amount of games he's played, the adversity he has overcome, not only with the injuries, but the transfer from IU. Yeah, so I think it'd be Williams, then Penix Jr. With J.J. McCarthy. That's a wild card question because with J.J., I think with all of them, you can win by using them right out of the gate. But, this is kind of amplifying something Nordo said last week, and he may not even remember. It wasn't about winning with rookie quarterbacks right now. It's about the structure of what of what individuals have around them. So if you have a defense that is on the reload or on the rebuild, I ain't starting a rookie quarterback. If you have an offensive line where you have some question marks and they all can move. See, that's like yesterday when I said, if the steam is accurate and through say 6 of them, maybe up to 8, this is going to be one of the deeper in the history of the NFL for quarterbacks. Well, with the first 4, the baseline has to be Kirk Cousins. All right. And Jared Goff. Now, I like Jared every bit as much as Kirk. And they're both 2 of the more underrated players the last 10 years in the NFL because they're not flashy. It's like Eli Manning. Or Joe Flacco. It's fantasy football. Rubes will knock Manning and Flacco until they see them hoisting Super Bowl trophies, and you're like, yeah, it's a team game. Others played into it. Well, the other trophy he has is the MVP. So there's so much more that goes into jumping right in, fitting right in, but what you have around you matters so much. And Caleb Williams, he's going to start. Now, what he has around him probably leaves a little to be desired, but that's their lot in life. That Jaden Daniels will start for Washington. If New England stays at 3, I'm not completely convinced the new quarterback will start. I think he may have to wait a little bit behind Jacoby Brissett. And I think that will be the case. I absolutely would bet, all right, 3-2. I believe that could be the case here behind Sam Darnold. So that was a thought-provoking talkback. Thank you for that.
Do we got time for one more, Brett?
One more, he says.
Let's do one more.
Hey, PA, as a Bears fan, I'm listening to a lot of draft talk and seemingly inevitability that the Vikings will trade up to get a guy. Is there a chance the Bears will trade down to keep the Vikings out of the top 4?
Ooh.
Oh, geez. Hold on. No, so let's see. They got 9. Okay, well, so the Bears going from 9 up into 4-3-2 is what he's saying, right?
I think so. The
Yes,
tough thing,
to
the
keep
Bears
them out.
Well, the Bears only have 4 draft picks now.
That's the bit.
So I don't know what kind of currency they could use to move up from 9.
Yep.
Now, he wasn't inferring the idea that they would trade back from 1. Would he? Trading down from 1?
He did say
not
trade
taking
down.
Caleb?
That's what I've got here.
Okay.
So
well,
if that's the case, now we're relying on would an Arizona move up to 1 and sacrifice that 27th overall pick?
Well, think about D'Amico Ryans and the GM for the Houston Texans. I'm forgetting my man's
Is
name.
it Nick Caserio, maybe?
Thank you. Looks like Caserio. It's Caserio. All right, 3-2. Well, I mean, what they did last year was under the cover of darkness. I mean, nobody wrote about it. Nobody pondered it.
Yeah.
The Houston whatever newspaper, the beat writer, nobody was like, well, they're going to absolutely take a quarterback, but be wary of something else. Now, they just came all the way up and went quarterback, Will Anderson.
Yeah, 12-3 maybe?
Yeah, was it 12-3?
Something like that, yeah.
So that, that's interesting what the talkbacker said. I mean, you never draft in the first round. You never move up to block another team. Not in the first round. It can happen in other spots of the draft. It just takes too much, and it's too risky if things don't work out. However, the way that was laid out, and I don't know what they have to give outside of the picks that Nordo talked about, but I'm sure they have a first next year. I'm sure they have a lot next year. We want to get up to 2. Washington has to go to 9.
Right.
I mean, that's not going to happen.
Well, I think, then putting a bow on this, similar to the conversation about the Giants moving from 6 to 4, you broached that topic, and it's not that it couldn't happen, and I do like 6 as a quarterback spot if a team like the Vikings don't move up and grab a guy.
Yeah.
But if you're the Cardinals, now you're already in a spot where if you need Malik Neighbors, you need Marvin Harrison Jr., you're going to have that opportunity at 4. If you're going to trade up to 1, you're giving up capital. If you're going to trade, let's say, with the Vikings, you're potentially getting that extra 1. So similar to that conversation with the Giants, who's a better trade partner and the gravity in which they can improve by making that transaction? Would moving up to 1 benefit if the Bears want to move back and block the Vikings? We're taking 4. We're not letting the purple move up and get their guy.
Yeah.
Well, why would the Cardinals do that if they can sit at 4 and get their wide receiver without spending capital? And similarly, if you're the Cardinals, why would you trade with the Giants to move 2 spots versus the Vikings who are going to give up that extra 1? So I think capital plays into it. I don't see them trying to get cute with it and move up from 9 if you're the Bears because they have so few picks. I'm not against them moving back from 9 to get more picks. But in the end, I don't know how the Bears, specifically in the tight way that the top 10 is fit, that they could affect what the Vikings ultimately want to do if they do choose to move up and throw some picks at it.
This is your happy birthday, Ella Henderson, leader, the fan, and KFAN.com. And her daddy joins 9 to noon next. Fan the Flames, 9 to noon on a Tuesday. And the Flames.
Win a victory for old LU. Go LU.
Go LU, do it.
Go LU.
Go LU. There is an L in LU. Did you guys take a lot of L's when you played wide receiver for Liberty? Or were you like one of those like 13-1
no
FCS teams trying, like complaining that you can't get into the bowl games, and then it all changed?
I think we lost 4 games my senior year, and that was the most we had lost in one season when I was in college. We won four conference championships, though. Went to the playoffs.
Nice.
my senior year. But yeah, to answer your question,
Yeah.
we weren't that 13-1 North Dakota State team.
That's Gabe Henderson, Gabe A. Henderson via Twitter. Please follow him at Gabe A. Henderson via the X machine. And he's part of a super gifted and a very deep Vikings Entertainment Network staff, and also does some stuff with Vikings.com. Also does a little side work practicing with the Minnesota Lynx, and the Lynx added some players yesterday. I don't know how closely, I didn't watch the WNBA draft. I was a little out of pocket, but I caught up on some things, and I retweeted something early this morning. The Indiana Fever players who were at their draft party. And then, with the first pick, the Indiana Fever select Caitlin Clark. And they knew it was going to happen. And did you see what I'm talking about?
No, I didn't see that.
And then they jumped up and went crazy, and they're out on the court and everything with the "Let's go" and crowd, and nice crowd. I mean, multiple thousands of people were there. I was just thinking of the other side of the proverbial album. It's like that was so authentic and precious and pure and real and happy. Ain't no way can you expect, or can we look back at, let's go to last year. Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sochan, and Zach Collins sitting on the front row of a bench at wherever the Spurs play at a draft party with Wembanyama. They ain't going to jump up and let's go jump around and act like that and stuff. I just thought it was really authentic and just beautiful.
I think that's the part of at least the WNBA or female basketball that a lot of fans are gravitating towards, is the authenticity of the game. I think now with the numbers and NIL and everything that's happening in men's sports, it's becoming more of a business. So when you look at the WNBA or just female sports, the passion is still there. Granted, those, girls are getting the money that they deserve, but still, that passion, you kind of miss that when it comes to just amateur sports, or just, I guess, professional sports in this case. So I guess when you look at the Indiana Fever, looking at that tweet that you're just talking about, you really don't know until you know when it comes to that first overall selection. Like the Chicago Bears right now with Caleb Williams, they don't know that Caleb Williams is going to be their quarterback until the actual name is called. We've seen some crazy things happen on draft night. So I don't expect Chicago to be rejoicing like the Indiana Fever was last night, but is Caleb Williams going to be the number 1 overall pick? I guess we won't know until next Thursday.
Well, I don't know, but if I'm DJ Moore or if I'm Keenan Allen, Allen went to Caleb Williams' pro day, I think.
Yep.
I think they might jump off the couch.
Oh, wow.
Don't you think they would? I mean, in some ways, it's like
off the couch, yes, at a draft party in the front row with thousands to see. No, men don't act like that.
Well, I mean, if there's a promotional event, not full hysterics, but they're going to get up and clap and root on their fans. You're Keenan Allen, backside of your career. You just got dealt to the Bears, Windy City, and now you don't know who your QB is, although technically you probably do because it might likely will be Caleb. I think they should pump that up a little bit, but yeah. They're still riding that vibe from the tournament, and we'll see how the viewership and the fanfare and those things continue to connect or follow Caitlin, and we've seen it with ticket prices and some things. Who knows what the long term is going to look like? But you know what? If I'm DJ Moore and I'm Keenan Allen, even if I'm Cole Kmet, I'm stoic. I'm Cole Kmet. I don't say much. When they draft Caleb Williams, I'm jumping off that couch because I'm thinking career high in stats, baby. Let's go. We're going to be airing it out. The defense isn't bad. We're a talker now for the division, which is super weird, man. I'm jumping off that couch. I'm hosting a draft party and I'm getting up off the couch when they say his name.
Man, that's a little extreme, Nordo, to host a draft party for the number 1 overall pick. But I get it. I get what you're saying as far as all right, we finally got our guy. I know we're going to get some more catches, especially for Cole Kmet in your rhetoric there of Cole being a tight end as a quarterback, a young quarterback. You're not going to trust throwing the ball to the outside right away. So your tight end is going to be your primary target. So out of the 3 guys you just named, probably Cole Kmet's throwing the draft party for his family and friends.
Oh, those red zone targets that Cole Kmet is going to get?
Through the roof.
Just pay attention. Watch it. You better start cheering now, Cole.
Yeah, you guys go ahead and keep sleeping on Gerald Everett. Old Gerald Everett stroking the post. Touchdown, Bears, fade to black, NFC North.
Harrison Smith, though.
Speaking of draft parties, and I was thinking about this over the weekend, it's say the Minnesota Vikings trade both picks this year in the first round or next year. All right. I mean, I ain't trying to get into the third floor's pockets a year in front of something. It's like, we know we ain't going to trip on tomorrow enough to deal with today. And that's a year down the road. Yeah. But if that scenario transpires, and that scenario could transpire, I mean, do you have a draft party? Kwesi probably will trade us back. Well, no, you don't have a second either. So, I mean, it's going to take it's going to take a lot to. It's like, well, what about the Miller Lite?
Right.
All right, 3-2. Let's double the crowd of Buffalo Wild Wings and have Paul say Coors and Miller Lite more often. All right, 3-2.
Well, you know what? The future is now. Just keep trading future first-round picks to keep moving up into the first round of the next year.
I mean, is it a draft party if we don't trade all of our picks this year for the number 1 overall pick? I feel like that's what fans want at this point. Like, trade the kitchen sink to get the quarterback that you want this year. That's what fans want. But we know Kwesi and the staff here, they're a little bit more strategic than throwing away everything to get, I guess, someone that the fans want. So it's a delicate balance.
If they want to trade 3 first-round picks,
no way,
for a quarterback Kevin O'Connell loves.
Okay.
How are you not in?
Okay.
You got to do it.
I mean, I'm absolutely in. And again, the phraseology here. If you are trading 3 first-round picks to start for a quarterback Kevin O'Connell loves, then shove it in.
I think Kevin O'Connell, if he loves a guy, will go all in for that guy. And if you're ownership or if you're Kwesi and Kevin having the quarterback background that he has, I believe, to your point, everyone would be all in on that. It's just, you think of, whenever I talk to Kwesi, I always say, Kwesi always talks about, on one day at a time. When I'm like, well, if you're a general manager, what is that number? And he says a day and a half, because you got to look towards the future. So I'm interested to see how he values the future when it comes to the quarterback position.
Here, and here's, like Ricky Rubio before you got here. He had a quote that was super precious, and the way he said it was adorable. But I mean, he was talking about showing negative emotions during games when he's turning it over, they're losing or whatever. And he said something along the lines of, I have to change my face. Okay. Well, that's metaphorical to a lot of things, including the general manager of the Minnesota Vikings. And I don't know of course I don't know. And I don't think, any of us know, or really outside of maybe a handful of people exactly know what Kwesi's duties are. Okay? So it's how am I going to put this? If I just can't see, I don't believe Kwesi is film grinding my take on the technique of a player and why it's better than this player. I don't, all the selections will be tied to Kwesi Adofo-Mensah.
Yeah.
However, I don't believe that he's the one wholeheartedly, completely making all the picks. So he laid that out with collaboration in the beginning. But I mean, and he also hit hard on the stock background and the analytics background and the football analytics development background. Now we're with Andrew Berry, and now we're here with Grigson and his staff and O'Connell and his staff. So it's just, when I say faces need to be changed with the general manager role as we've known it for decades, I don't believe that to be the case here.
Yeah, and I mean, he is the face of it, right? So he gets the praise, he gets the slander when it comes to.
Well, that comes with it,
right? So I think Kwesi knows that. But to your point, I remember talking to Kwesi on your show at the Combine, and he talked about how he's trusting the Demetrius Washingtons, the Chisholm Oparas, the Jamal Stevensons of the world in their film study to be able to help Kwesi make the right selection. I believe it comes to a point where those guys start to do process of elimination, and then when they get to a certain number, they present that to Kwesi, and then on draft night, Kwesi collaborates with those guys. Hey, well, what about this? How are we weighing this? And ultimately, it becomes a team decision. So yeah, to your point, Kwesi is making the calls in. He is saying, hey, I want this amount of, I want Jordan Addison with the 23rd overall pick. But that collaboration involved, I believe Kwesi has entrusted the right guys to be able to do so, and hopefully
I like how you laid that out.
that will be made this year when it comes to whatever way the Vikings decide to go in the draft.
Now, with that said, collaboration and all included, he still has to feel the urgency of getting stung with the trade back a couple of years ago. It's not his fault with the broken leg in London, etc. But he has to be feeling the urgency of now moving forward, whether or not it's totally his intel on things. It's why you have a scouting department. I'd imagine the head coach, specifically as we've talked about trading up for a QB, his voice is probably loudest in the room as it pertains to that particular discussion. Yeah. But even if it's not his, he's under fire right now. Like, he has to know that. He doesn't need us to tell him that. But it's the, the motivation, and that's where you can go down many roads in terms of why people make the decisions they do. Self-preservation, best for the organization, best selection at the time, both based on your intel. But he has to feel max urgency right now to jump out of the gates. If you are going to move up, it has to be a home run. It has to be a guy like PA said. It's not. I don't think it's criteria that should be anything than necessary. That KOC loves this guy. Move up and go get him. Right.
I think this year is the year to trade up for the guy that you want. What that looks like, what you have to give up, I don't know. But going into year 3 for this front office and head coaching staff, this is the year where you start to place your identity on the team. I mean, every coach goes through this. If you get a chance to get to year 3, this is the year where we're supposed to start to feel, okay, this is what Kwesi, this is what Kevin wants. So if that means trading up for your guy in the first round to go get him to hopefully propel you over that hump in year 4, then I think this is the year to do so.
Gabe Henderson, Vikings Entertainment Network, and Vikings.com with 9 to noon. About 10 minutes from now, Kevin O'Connell, coach of the Minnesota Vikings, will be joining the 9 to noon radio show. We are at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center in Eagan.
So I think also that Kwesi's coming into this, it feels like there's a fair amount of confidence. Now, he spoke to the media last week, and he said this. I'm trying to find the quote. There we go. Everybody talks about the low hit rate. Because anybody, and I put a poll up on KFAN's X account earlier today. You want to stick and pick at 11. You want to pay anything to move up. Do you want to be like Rick and trade back and trade back and trade back? Come on. So, but most people are still in that. It's actually a hell of a lot closer to 50-50 than I thought. Yeah.
Tracy quaded back. Oh, wait. Kwesi traded back and he cannot lie.
Yeah.
Passed him by.
Yeah. Kwesi don't
we
dance.
Got options.
Kwesi don't dance. He just pulls up his pants and does the rock away.
Awesome.
And trade back.
I love that.
So he writes this
back.
though.
Trade back.
So context would be since 2011. Since 2011, 19 of 41 first-round picks, so just less than 50%, have gotten a second contract as a quarterback. So 19 of 41 since 2011, new CBA. I think that's why that's a good place to start from a cutoff. He writes, everyone talks about the low hit rates, but is that because the player wasn't good or because the situation wasn't great? And so I feel like there's confidence, and we're so tied to this team emotionally, employment-wise, and all of that included. So there's certainly bias in the mix. But I'm thinking we're a better spot offensively than the Bears. I'm thinking we're a better spot offensively than the Commanders, the Patriots, most certainly. So when you speak to it and you think about it like that, the confidence that Kwesi has is, KOC's going to love a guy. Is that Jaden Daniels, for instance, that's an unattainable asset. He's going to the Commanders. It's game over. But if we can end up with a Drake May or a J.J. McCarthy, that this situation is just so good and so pure from a development standpoint with the quarterback, in some ways you can't lose, even if maybe you grade them a little differently than what you end up with.
I think you hit that right on the head as far as Kwesi is confident in this coaching staff enough to be able to put the players in the right position to be able to make plays. I mean, just look at I know we're talking offense, but look at our defense last year. Just on paper, the names that were on paper and what Brian Flores did with those guys, that gives a general manager confidence, because when you're able to, be top 5 in run defense, blitz as much as you did, have the effectiveness on the defensive side of the ball, and then on the offensive side of the ball, you have enough guys to be able to make plays because of the coaches you have in place. Ultimately, that gives your general manager the utmost confidence that we can get this done. If not this year, then next year. I think we will finally get a chance to see what this KOC, Kwesi-led Minnesota Vikings team will finally be in the year 2024. And I think that gives a lot of confidence for Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah this year.
If the Minnesota Vikings make a trade in the first round of the draft, like say they come up with New England or Arizona, just take those two. If that's going to be, would you prefer to have the public or announce that trade, say tomorrow, or 2 days from now, Thursday, a week in front of the draft, or Monday, or when we're at U.S. Bank Stadium, 6 o'clock the draft starts, 15 minutes later the first pick, now you're sweating, maybe Washington will do it fast. Yeah. Well, then all of a sudden, I mean, I don't know what it's going to be like. It's going to be, as the kids would say, hype, as the kids would say, lit. It's going to be, the vibe in there is going to be fantastic. Or would you prefer, if that were to happen, that it just happened before the draft and you don't have any names tied to it, but then you can start bandying about names?
As a fan or as a employee of the Vikings? Employee, I would much rather see the Vikings trade on draft day. Like, let us build up all this drama and all this hype saying the Vikings are going to do this, and then on draft night, everything changes. And then none of this really matters, what we're talking about today. So
right.
Wait till draft night.
Great seeing you.
Appreciate you, Pierre.
Have a wonderful day. And we're doing a podcast at noon, correct?
Yep. It'll be on Vikings.com later this week.
With Jay Nelson?
Yes, sir.
When will later this week?
Yeah, most likely Thursday. Vikings.com.
And over the next 30 seconds, you get it all. Fondest memories of the first year with your child, Ella, who turns 1 year of age today.
Man, where do I start? We're a year and she's still going through a sleep regression, but the best part is just seeing her smile whenever I walk in the door. She knows me by Dada now.
So she's saying it?
Yeah, she says Dada. And
you remember what Ava and Stella's first words were? Like Derek was hot tea.
One of them was daddy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That was Stella. Stella was daddy. Ava was something unintelligible.
Probably Dada, which means moms all over the place keep taking L's for profit.
Well, they've chosen her many times.
Many levels.
Yeah, she's the best, man. She's my world. Everybody knows that. So I'm just looking forward to not rushing the next 17 years of life before she has to move out the house.
Well, there's a sleep regression, which means eventually, and I promise you this, on the other side of it, a sleep regression.
I love that.
You just can't see it, but it'll happen. Good seeing you.
Appreciate you, PA.
Gabe Henderson at Gabe A. Henderson via Twitter. And around the corner, ladies and gentlemen, KOC, yeah, you know we. Kevin O'Connell, coach of the Minnesota Vikings, joins 9 to noon for an old X's and O's off-season one-on-one sit-down with yours truly on KFAN.